I love the struggle. I love the hardship and the challenge of having to grow every 6 months. And I think that's what life's about. We've talked about that. Like you upskill yourself, and that gives you the right, if you will, to be in a better opportunity vehicle. So if you are wired to grow and learn, your life will be exponentially better than if you're stuck in the mud. Matt, what's back?
What's going on? Back in studio in the year. You ready?
Matt is back. Dun, dun, dun.
This might be the last time you ever see me.
Why?
You're so damn busy, bro.
No. I'll see you in your little fishbowl of an office.
I mean, I might be in the office in January 7 days. I'm not.
Really?
Just due to how much stuff we got going on.
Well, I'll come by on Sundays and bring you chicken biscuits or something. Whatever you want, Matt. Egg whites, maybe?
I know you'll be very sad when you can't do podcasts with me all the time. But
I will. I'll still get you in here. Don't worry. You got a dad joke?
I do.
Let's hear it.
You ready?
I'm so ready.
What did one wall say to the other wall?
I don't know.
I'll meet you in the corner.
Ooh, I like that. Matt, finally.
Did somebody didn't repeat that one? Did I repeat somebody else's? Did I actually have a new one?
Yeah, one of your own. That's always good, Matt. Come up with one of your own. So I know your girls are into horses. Do you know that I recently bought a horse?
You did?
Yeah. I named it Mayo. You know what else?
No.
Mayonnaise. Get it?
Yes, I got it. How long have you been sitting on that? Literally just waiting for me because of my kids ride horses?
Nah, I just saw it the other day. It was really good. But I know your kids ride horses, so that's how I do that, man. I work it into the conversation.
Oh, man, you're very good. You really work on your material.
It's craft. Like anything, it's a skill that can be worked on.
It's in the mirror.
What are we talking about today, Matt, other than my new horse, Mayo?
Well, we're going to talk about the year and how awesome it is and kind of a little bit next year. I mean, it's
year in review.
It's kind of our, a little bit of I would say a gift and a curse to us. We don't really look back and celebrate anything, right? We just go keep crushing, right?
That might be a good topic for a podcast.
Yeah, I think we're going to do that one here too, but we should do that. Just kind of want to.
Well, let's do year in review. It shouldn't take that long.
Yeah. Well, what have you done this year, Rick?
Not much. We've only awarded 145-ish licenses, give or take.
145.
Year's not finished. Year's not over. I know that people are hearing this probably right at the year's end. But yeah, we've awarded 145 licenses this year. We have 40 open. We have 100 more in process, somewhere between signing and pre-sale and opening. So by this time next year, we will have 140 or so open. Isn't that crazy?
It's pretty good, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, we've talked about the stats before. Only 15% of any kind of franchise, whether it's food, fitness, gutters, whatever that may be, gets 50 locations open. So it puts you in rare air. And once we crest 100 open, you're in the top 2% of all franchises. And of course, we're only used to talking about and looking at like McDonald's or, I've worked on other fitness franchises that have thousands of locations. It's like, through that lens, it's kind of like, meh, but it is a big deal. It's harder than it looks, obviously.
That's why I said, meh. That's our culture.
Yeah, right? I know.
So 140.
We're going to address that this year as well.
Get better, buddy.
Get better. Yeah, right? We got a lot of work to do. Chop, chop. That kind of thing. But
did you even feel it, like going through the journey? Like, it's been a year. It's been obviously 12 months. Like, it flew by. And it's like, oh, we sold 140. And it's just like,
you know what? It's hard to think about because there's so much work to be done that's ahead of us. I don't know. I mean, we're notoriously terrible at celebrating wins, which I know we'll address at some point. But I think I haven't really stopped to think about it because there's so much to be done. Right?
Yeah, on to the next.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at least tip of the cap, man. That's where you're really
props to you too,
you're
man.
running the show here. This is kind of where you stay, right?
Yeah, that's it on the sales end. But I mean, that's the easy part, as it turns out. The hard part is getting people open and operationally successful, and working around them learning to become entrepreneurs. I mean, I think that's some things. Like if we want to talk about like things we've learned and or changes that we made as a result of that, I think would be a good. Since this will probably be a relatively short podcast, but I think. Certainly things that we've changed thus far is we've tweaked our pre-sale a little bit, right? You can speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously we're really rolling. We have lots of clubs coming through. Like we've literally starting next year, we'll have a month where we probably have 10 clubs coming through. So through that experience
for training, you're talking about.
Yeah, for training and getting rolling. Like through that experience, obviously we're figuring out better ways. And I think that's good to hear, because it's not like no company, if you're any good, is just going to sit there and just be like, don't make any changes. Or not always. We're constantly adjusting.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, we are. And that's a question I get often. We do what's called a founder's call, which is like the gatekeeping call to come to the confirmation day or discovery day.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of folks will ask, okay, so what are you guys doing to evolve? And I mean, I can't even think of the amount of things that we've changed. Now, when you hear that, we often talk through that lens of staying super focused, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you only have so many resources, that'd be money, attention, all the things. You can't implement change willy-nilly, but the changes that we've made have been small. I would call them more adjustments than change, right?
Well, just like for on the pre-sale side of things, you brought it up. It's very simply is like we see the process. Like Jared on our team deals with construction and real estate and all the permitting stuff. So we see where there's problems, right? Where it's like here, if we open up too early, you could run into issues. And basically all we're doing is adjusting your timelines, right? So we have you start your pre-sale process later than we did before based on what we've learned, right?
And that will mitigate churn.
And mitigate churn is just going to give you the best chance for success.
Yep.
Right. And that's the goal. At all this is like at the end of the day, like we want to give you the best chance to be successful in your kind of business.
Right. And all of the changes that we've made, because franchising is the most aligned business that I can think of, meaning if our franchise partners are not successful, neither are we.
Yeah, exactly.
And I always tell people that. It's like, look, I love this business model. I mean, you can trust that we're going to, be very diligent in our choice of real estate, because if you put it in a bad location, that's not great. We've given you a ton of resources on how to identify in your market a director, right? So a lot of people say, well, I haven't been in the fitness business, so how am I going to find fitness people to work in these? Because, a lot of our franchisees are more on the investor level.
Yep.
And they're going to run their business, but they're not going to be in their servicing revenue because they don't know the fitness business. So it's like, where am I going to find these people? I'm like, well, we've got vendors that can help you find them. We've got a screening process in place that can help you screen them to let you know whether they're hardwired to do the roles, and they're very specific to alloy, as an example. And then we've got interview questions and ways to interview people, which is another one of the changes we've made. So we've tweaked a pre-sale. We've moved it back a little bit, so you spend more time in pre-sale with a working facility, which is, as it turns out, makes everything easier. There's a whole bunch of that to unpack that we won't get into today, but we've tweaked pre-sale based on what we've seen on evidence. And it's a small change. You're talking about shifting things 4 weeks. It's not massive, but it makes a big difference. And the sum of a bunch of small iterations and tweaks will amount to big changes, right? But we can't come in with these wholesale changes, which we wouldn't want to do anyway, because it wasn't like the process started off poorly. No. It's just slight adjustments. But you take 100 of those, which we probably have in some fashion in our business somewhere, and it makes a huge difference. And that's sort of what we're doing. So to anyone that's, saying, okay, you're growing really quick, are you evolving this thing? The answer is constantly. Absolutely. Absolutely. Not at the expense of the business model or your ability to do business. Our final screen is always keep it simple, but 100% continuing to evolve. Pre-sale being another one, or one of them. Another one being implementing EOS. We just talked about entrepreneurship, and I really see entrepreneurship as a skill. It's like a muscle that can be developed over time, if you want to use an exercise analogy. And EOS is a great framework or scaffolding to put into your business to help you run successfully. And there are the pillars, and we've got an entire podcast on EOS, but by implementing EOS corporately and then teaching it to franchisees, it's a way to teach them not just how to run an alloy, but also how to be a good entrepreneur. And I think there are some inherent skills to just being an entrepreneur that aren't even specific to alloy. They could be just entrepreneurship in general. Do you agree?
I mean, 100%. Like you said, our investors, a lot of folks, we come from different industry, different fields. They may have never ran a small business or never led a team, right? So again, we're just trying to give you the best chance to be successful. Brought in EOS, here's a framework, here's all things that need to be checked in place if you're going to run a good business.
Yep. And it's people and data, and there's all these pillars if you're familiar with the book Traction or the system EOS. So we're going to teach that because we want to give you a skill set that is entrepreneurship. And it's also a set of lenses to wear in your business every day. that will keep, if you haven't been an entrepreneur, and some of the folks that have come to the table that we love as franchise partners, they've been very successful in other arenas. Lobbyists in Washington, they've been top of their department, or they maybe been the CFO of a mid-sized company. Now they're coming into entrepreneurship, and it's a different skill. Now it's a muscle, again, that can be developed, so we are going to lean into that as hard as we can. We're going to give you a set playbook to run an alloy, but we're also going to give you some skills, because some of these skills aren't as tangible as, tactical as do these 3 things. It's like lenses on your business, mindset, how you view the business, right? How to measure your business relevantly and what to do with those measurements. So we've implemented EOS, which I think has been a really good change. Obviously, we run it corporately, and it's really helpful. I think that the way it was described when we first started it, because I remember bringing it to the table and everybody's like, no, it's just one more thing. I'm like, look, man, like as we grow, it's going to be a great system to just plug people into, right? Well, you think about for franchisees now, same thing. We're going to give them the set of lenses and then how to plug their people into the lenses, because, in the fitness business, you're going to have people that come and go just like any business, and you're going to need a way to plug new people in, hold them accountable, give them objectives. Everyone on the team, whether they're part-time or full-time, is going to understand how they fit into the puzzle, how they make a difference in a business, which, by the way, is a huge intrinsic motivator for people. Like, how am I positively affecting this business? Well, we're going to be able to measure all that now. But then the mindset that comes along with it, with EOS, and what it teaches you about how to look at your business so that you don't make your decisions based on emotions, that you may make them based on data. Right?
Yeah.
It's a skill, and it can be developed. So we're going to work hard on that. So we've tweaked presale. We've implemented EOS. We have a lot of new equipment updates coming down the pipe. These aren't massive updates. Like, we're not going to be implementing an entirely new strategy. Like, program design is a principle that we follow. It's a solid principle, what we use. It comes from the tip of the spear in the athletic world. We just, for lack of better terms, dumb it down for average adults. So that doesn't need to change, but the things around it can change, right? Like, okay, should we add this other piece of equipment? And right now, what we're simply doing is making our equipment much more attractive. We finally have enough volume where our equipment vendor is willing to run a die cast so that we can have an alloy logo imprinted into the kettlebells, right? That we can have branded back plates on the rack system. It's just little touches, but when you're talking about a 1,500 to 2,000 square foot facility, a couple little branding ticks will make a massive difference in a small space. They just make it look cooler. We've got some new millwork coming out where the sort of front desk area, and there's like a cubbies built in. And I mean, there's just all these small iterations that continue to evolve. And by the way, will continue to do so.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about franchising at scale is that every small change has a cascading effect. So if you think of the franchisees that are currently open, new year, we're launching this new equipment. It's like, oh, well, I want that. Well, some of it can be retrofitted easily, right? You can add the backplating branding. You can do these things. Some of it, you have to have somebody come in and just make a few changes. But we've, part of that is, okay, so we've negotiated a flat rate for if you want to upgrade to this or if you want to upgrade to that, right? And we're not making it a requirement for a long time, because what we had worked just fine functionally.
Yeah.
But you want it to be a little bit prettier, a little bit slicker?
Sure.
Okay, great. Here's where you can do that. And you can choose parts and pieces of that, right? So anyway, there's always a lot to think about with like one small change.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a lot, and like the cascading effect, like I was talking about some of the other day, you're like, hey, what about this and that? I was like, yeah, all that stuff's great from a programming standpoint. Training is like any little thing we add, though, like there's so many things it affects. So there's a lot of hard, time sitting in the trenches figuring out like how we can do this at scale. So like one of the big things kind of talk about, we changed the rack. We added in, some cables to it, which are really cool.
Those are super cool.
From a, current franchisee and potential new franchise down the road, like just know like a lot of people were giving us feedback that they would like these things. So we actually like took that and actually added it in, which is probably good to hear, right? Like we listened to our Z's and like, I think
people would want to hear that. Yeah.
And we actually did it. So that's one of the cool big changes. But anything, there's a lot of time and thought goes into it, and we're already planning on how to like retrofit and get everybody.
I mean, there's a rollout that needs to be systemized and well thought out, methodical, right? Mm-hmm. Not only for retrofitting old clubs, but what's it going to look like in new clubs? Do they have the volume ready? Our equipment vendor, can they get all that stuff done? It's like, look, man, there's a lot that goes into it. And then, I always think like from your seat, because you still control not only all studio ops, but a big part, I mean, what we actually do is personal training, and the programming is really important. So if we add something like we have as simple as a couple of cable columns in the middle of the rack system, which from a customer experience standpoint are going to be great, again, just to give you guys a lens on how this would work, then cascading, that means that we're going to have to shoot a ton of new videos using the cables, right?
All the programs, videos.
Yeah, programs, videos, the whole thing, right? And yes, we used to use bands as cables, but now with real cables, there's a few extra choices. So we're going to be able to we're going to have to add a lot to our video library around that. So there's nothing that happens at scale that doesn't have a pretty massive downstream effect. And we have to consider that.
Yeah.
But I think if you're listening to this and you are an Alloy franchisee or you're considering it, we are constantly pushing for evolution, but with the final lens of, is this simple enough that we can scale it, right? So we can't just go willy-nilly like we've talked about and just implement a bunch of crazy things like our entrepreneur brains want us to do.
Right.
We often use that term, bullets before cannonballs, which simply means, I think the analogy was a great by choice, two enemy ships sailing at each other. Both of them have a finite amount of gunpowder, right? Like say one pail. And in a business sense, that gunpowder could represent time, attention, money, all three, right?
Yeah.
So you only have so much of that, resources, people. And, would it be prudent to pour all of the gunpowder into the cannon and hope that you had your range, right? Or would it be better off to pour a little bit of gunpowder in some muskets and fire them out there until you ping a few off the hull, you find your range, then you're just like, all right, that's where it is. Then right? And so we often use that term, bullets before cannonballs, in our business. We say it all the time, bullets before cannonballs, bullets before cannonballs. And what that means is we're always testing. And so for anyone listening, we're looking at new software options and AI and always pushing and looking at new things, but we're not going to do it at the expense of our gunpowder, meaning ours and yours. It's all as one and the same. Attention, funding, whatever that may be, people. So, we're always testing things, but many of them, 80% or more, you're never going to hear about because they fall flat. They're not as great as we thought.
Oh, yeah. It's always a lens of what's the best interest for our people that got to use it, right? And that's where we look at it. Could you imagine if we just threw every piece of equipment we ever got through here?
Yeah,
you know how much shit we get people bring in and just drop off?
Oh, as a heads up, like when you're sitting on, a couple hundred, we're at 210, I think, licenses now. And we've still got some more to wrap up before year's end. When you're sitting on that many clubs and you see you got 100 clubs in process, that's a lot of equipment. So a lot of people just lob stuff over to us and say, hey, what do you think about this? And of course, it might be cool in its own right.
Yeah.
We've seen some things like, oh, that's kind of cool. But then you zoom out a little bit and you're like, yeah, but you really think about how it's applied at volume, one coach, 6 people all day long, every day. It's like, that's not going to work. Right?
Yeah.
So it might be cool, but it won't work. Right. Yeah. And there are some things that are cool that will work, but there's lenses that we're using that are always to the benefit of the franchisee. So, but at least from coming this year, we have equipment updates that are more aesthetic other than the cables, which are just sort of an upgrade to a mechanism that we already had in place.
Yep,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. We've added some new vendors this year, which is cool. I mean, I know we got a little bit of press around adding Merrick Health as a vendor.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they're just a vendor. They're not part of our business model. We can't monetize them at all because they're medical, and it puts us in a precarious position, from a legal standpoint. So we are simply putting them in our vendor suite as a resource so that all of our franchisees now have access to affordable telehealth for detailed blood work and, and supplementation, vitamins, hormones if they need it, all the things that our customer avatar is really interested in. So it's a perfect alignment, but that's what we look at. Like, again, we talk about sitting in the seat of the hub in the wheel for our clients, and then there's spokes in the wheel, which are nutrition, habit change, supplementation, recovery, blood work, hormones, like what's going inside your body.
You're telling me that you got this just for our clients' sake? There's no beneficial, that you get kickback, money, anything. Literally, you just brought them in because it's the best thing.
And I mean, unfortunately, cool. We can't. Like, I'm sure our franchisees would also love to be able to monetize it, but unfortunately, the way they're set up, we can't. But if you look at it as a resource, does it make us look smart? Yes. Does our customer avatar need something like this? Yes. Is it more affordable than what you would get, locally if you went to, say, a functional medicine doctor? Yes. So anyway, it's just a resource. That's all that it is.
Well, no, but it's cool because it's like it's how you normally be, like, because you truly actually care, right?
Right.
Like you truly, like the person sitting across from you truly care, like their health and stuff. So you brought, not only making our franchisees better, but you're really going to help enhance like the clients downstream. They go to those clubs, right? That's pretty cool.
That's it. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah,
we're
that's
here
awesome.
to, like, again, look good, feel great, live life to the fullest.
It's great.
And that's what if it fits into that, framework, then we're going to do it. A couple new marketing vendors that we've brought in for clubs as well. New processes around that. We've obviously we've scaled our team. So we've got franchise business coaches that we've hired. We've got finance people. We've got our sales assist. We're scaling that team. It's like we've got a lot of things going on right now. Mm-hmm. But the good news is, and this is another question we get often, how can you support me with that level of growth, is that there are triggers for plugins. So it's not lost on us what we need at certain junctures, right? Based on, and the great thing about franchising is it's somewhat methodical in the sense that you've got sales on the front end and there are development schedules. So it gives you a time frame for when those clubs need to do what.
You got
or those
to forecast and once.
So it's easy to forecast and it's easy to plug in people. And a lot of people say, how are you going to support us? It's like, listen, we just need to stay disciplined to the tripwires of when to plug team members in, right? And I think for me, if you look at, the thing that's going to be the biggest challenge moving forward, and I think it's just inherent. It's not a challenge just for us. It's keeping the culture together and the feel, the core values, all the things of the business as we scale. And that sounds really simple, but it's not. And it's not lost on me that will be difficult. And for me as CEO, that's my main objective is, can we stay true to who we are as Alloy as we scale quickly? Not easy to do, but the fact is I'm aware of it. I know it's going to be difficult. So I'm not sitting here saying, oh yeah, piece of cake. We'll do that all day long. It's like, no. So that means we have new processes in place corporately for hiring and culture screens and all the things that we do to make sure that, yes, we can scale our team, but they're the right people in the right seats. And again, it just gives our franchisees the best level of support.
Yeah, 100%.
So goals for next year, if you want to extrapolate that out, our budget for next year is 170 more licenses awarded in 2024. So if we'll probably wrap up the year at 215, maybe 220. So that'll take us out to 350 plus, easy. That's a lot, right?
Yes, sir.
So we have a tiger by the tail. That's not lost on us per what I just spoke about scaling and doing all the things, but we'll have 170 awarded, maybe more, during the year of 2024. By this time next year, which will be wrapping up the year, we'll have another 100 clubs open. So we have 100 plus clubs in some level of the process, from they just signed all the way through to they're in their presale.
Yep.
So imagine this time next year, we'll be in that 2% because we will have 140 or so open.
Yep.
It's a big tipping point, right? So that's coming. That's big. And again, just trying to keep the culture together while we do that is our main objective.
It's going to be a big scaling year for sure.
Yep, for sure. And we've got the right people in the right seats from a leadership perspective now. And we often joke about this, and this includes me. We're almost at this pace reapplying for our jobs every 6 months because it's so difficult. So everyone has to grow. And so that's, again, a big part of our culture is like, listen, our team has to continue to grow. And, we're not going to be the same type of leaders that we are now that we will be next year with 140 open and 400, 350 to 400 sold. Mm-hmm. And then the next year after that, when there's 200 or 300 open, I mean, it's a different animal, right?
Didn't we used to have a core value, grow or die?
Yeah, I think that was a little harsh, but yeah, basically.
Hey, man.
It's a philosophy. I mean, it's a truth more than anything. Like you either grow or there's no sitting still in business, certainly not in our business.
Well, it's so cool. Like, I'm just thankful I can be a part of this and like riding this journey, right? Because, again, we don't look back, but it's like we're totally different now than we were a year ago. And it's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think ultimately, this is a shorter podcast today. That's the way I'd love to wrap up, is like ultimately when I zoom out a little bit, there's all these moving parts. It's hard, but I'm grateful. I'm not only grateful for the fact that we have these great franchise partners that have put their trust, their investment in us, their effort, but also that I'm grateful for the actual challenge itself, right? And I think that's a good mindset to be in. And I hope our franchisees hear that is entrepreneurship can be difficult. And if you haven't done it, it can feel overwhelming at times. But if you look at that as an opportunity to grow, I've said this a million times and I mean it, entrepreneurship can be seen as a self-help journey disguised as a business, right? you're only going to grow as far as you can take it if you're the leader. Yep. And so I love the struggle. I love the hardship and the challenge of having to grow every 6 months. And I think that's what life's about. We've talked about that. Like you upskill yourself, and that gives you the right, if you will, to be in a better opportunity vehicle. And as soon as you hit that, you upscale again, and you're in a better opportunity vehicle. And such is life, right? You can say that about anything in your life. You have to upskill yourself. If you're going to have kids, yeah, it's a different deal being a parent, right? Okay, then your kids get older. Now you might have grandkids, or there are just steps to life that are interesting and difficult. And so if you are wired to grow and learn, your life will be exponentially better than if you're stuck in the mud.
100%. Let's go 2024.
Yeah. So, hey, listen, thanks to everybody. We're grateful for you. And you guys listen to this podcast. I mean, this is just something that we do for fun. It gets a lot of traction, even though it's very niche to fitness franchising and certainly to Alloy. But I enjoy the hell out of it. It's a lot of fun just to get thoughts out into the metaverse, if you will.
It's good therapy for you.
It's good therapy. Yeah, basically this is my therapy. So if you go back and listen to the last 2 years of podcast, you'll see all the shit I've had to work through. And hopefully you'll be a little bit sympathetic to me. Specifically. Because like I sit here with Matt. I mean, it's like doing a podcast with a guy who doesn't do anything. It's really hard. You know what I mean? It really is.
You're welcome.
But anyway, dude, super grateful for you too. And listen, you guys, you'll be catching us at the end of the year. Happy New Year. Let's kick some ass in 2024. I don't care what business you're in. If you're listening to this from a different industry, let's go. I mean, the news and everybody else will tell you the world's on fire. It is not. There's so much friggin' opportunity out there. If you're willing to grow, learn, and bust your ass, you can move mountains. You really can. It's not easy, but boy, is it worth it.
Yeah, come on.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys. Peace.